Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. We're fortunate to have guests who tell us about their businesses, how they built them, because we want to find out their entrepreneurial story. Today we have a very special guest with us, a gentleman who's built a very good business, Mr. Carlo Quintana of Lariat Builders Group. Mr. Quintana, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Quintana, how many years have you been in business?
So Lariat Builders Group has been in business since 2010.
And so what does Lariat Builders Group do?
Good question. So Lariat Builders Group is the corporation that has three different entities underneath that. We have Lariat Restoration, which provides emergency fire and water damage restoration services to residential and commercial clients. We have 1-800 Board Up of El Paso, which is our service that responds to victims of fire and other unexpected disasters. And then we have our Roof Max of El Paso dealership, which provides roof restoration services, which is an affordable alternative to roof replacements.
But you started with the restoration.
We started with Lariat Builders Group Corporation as a residential roofing contractor back in 2010.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. And from there, opportunities came up and we expanded into different branches of property damage restoration. So each one of those entities in some way or another addresses property damage restoration.
How big are you?
So at this point, we have 12 employees, and it's been a while since we've had just 12 employees. We've scaled down, but I think we've got the right people, and I think we've figured out how to do more with less. So we've got 12 on staff right now.
Very good. And so how in the world did you get into business? Just fall into it?
No, not at all. You know, growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't pinpoint to say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an attorney, or I want to be an engineer. I didn't know that. And even though I had some good role models, I still couldn't pin down what exactly I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to do a lot of things. And so I figured the only thing to do that was to go down the entrepreneurship road. So at about 2008, I was working for a local insurance broker. Back then it was Rogers and Belding Insurance. You may recall that. And Rogers and Belding Insurance was one of the two largest firms in El Paso that specialized in commercial insurance. And so when I got done with college, I got hired on as a producer or a sales agent for commercial insurance, but as a trainee. And so that was good enough for me because I was fresh out of college. And so that gave me an opportunity to join the firm, and where I was able to pick up some knowledge of insurance and have that insurance background. About 6 years later, I left that company. And I moved to Houston to follow a larger firm doing the same thing. And I realized after about 11 months that I couldn't make Houston home. It just didn't feel right, not forever at least. And so I left Houston, and there was an interim there where I said, well, I'm gonna figure out what I want to do. An opportunity came up that caught my attention, and that was to become a roof replacement salesperson. A large storm had just passed through the El Paso area, and so there was companies that were in El Paso selling roof replacements. And so I said, well, I'll give this a shot. It looked lucrative, and I said, well, how hard can it be? So I did that, and quickly picked up on that, gained some traction. Had some success, and then the storm work dried out. So the company went to the next storm, which was an assignment in Arkansas. So I went with the company to Arkansas, and it was pick up and do the same thing in Arkansas. And then at that point, I realized, okay, well, I don't want to do this forever. So at that point, I had brought in another friend, and we were in Arkansas together doing the same thing. And I said, look, I think we can go back to El Paso, and we can do this on our own. And at that point, that was the one opportunity that I felt is something that I could do on my own. And so we came back to El Paso. He and I got to work and started Lariat Builders Group. And that was back in 2010, and here we are.
You still partners with you?
No, so 4 years ago, I acquired the business and was able to buy him out. And so at this point, I am the sole owner.
So you went to UTEP?
I went to UTEP for a little bit. I went to community college for a little bit, and ultimately ended up having my career or my degree from University of Phoenix. College was just difficult for somebody working full time, and so I figured that if it was ever going to happen, it had to be that route. So
What'd you study?
I got a degree in business administration.
Did that help you?
You know, it helped in some ways. I feel like at that point I kind of just raced through it just to get it done. And so looking back now, I wish I would have paid more attention, because some of those classes could have probably served me well. But it did. You know, the college taught me how a lot about the discipline and meeting deadlines. And so in that regard, it did.
So what neighborhood did you grow up in?
Okay, that is kind of an interesting question. I grew up on the west side of El Paso, some years of my youth, and then other years of my youth grew up in Southern Park, New Mexico. So
okay.
Depending on, I was raised in a single family environment. It was just my mother and my sister and I. And so depending on the economic conditions that mom was facing at that time, dictated where we lived. So I spent some time in Sunland Park, New Mexico, and then also west side of El Paso.
So what did you learn from your mom?
Gosh, you know, from my mom, I would have to say there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from my mom. One of the biggest was it was always instilled in our mind that we could do anything. Even though my mother's successes were not very consistent, I think she tried to do the best she could, and she had ups and downs. But throughout all of that, I saw that she was very resilient, and she always tried to display that spirit of you can do anything you put your mind to.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your sister, is she older or younger?
So I have an older sister, and she's currently in Dallas, Texas, with her family. And so I've got two half sisters and a half brother, and they all live in the Rio Grande Valley.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're all younger.
And your mom still?
My mom is still, she's still around. My mom and my grandma, they both live in Dallas, closer to my sister.
So what high school did you go to? Three high schools?
No, I went to one high school. I went to a private school. The little private school, it was called Life Center Christian School. And I've got good memories of that, mixed memories. But that was actually the only high school that I went to.
That was a Salcedo?
That's right. Yeah, it was a small building, very close to UTEP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right behind. I forget the church on the corner. Right behind it.
Yeah, it's a small Catholic church, and I don't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah. On Yendel.
That's right. Yep.
So so this business of this idea. So you got it. So you spent what, 8 years with insurance and.
About 8 years. I worked for State Farm throughout college, and once I left State Farm, I went to work for Rogers and Belding, and was there almost 6 years.
What did that do for you to prepare you?
That's an excellent question, and I think that laid the foundation for the type of work that we do now, which is primarily insurance restoration work, and it's a very specialty niche. The background in insurance gave me the ability to understand how an insurance policy works, how different coverages work, and so that mixed with the restoration work that we do was just a natural fit. It just worked perfect, and it still does. Yeah.
You're married?
I am married. Been married for 11 years. I have one daughter. She is 9 years old.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and does your wife help you with the business?
She's supposed to. She's supposed to. She was involved with the business, and after the pandemic, she had to step aside to do the homeschool, and just kind of stayed in that role. But that's okay. I'd rather her be a mom than
so you do
than a
homeschool?
business partner. We don't. We had to during the pandemic
Right.
because the schools were closed, and so she stayed home with my daughter.
Oh, that's nice.
And she's still involved in some ways,
Yeah.
but not full time. That's okay though.
Well, as you built your business, where you're at today, did you envision that when you started?
No, not at all. I don't know that there even was a plan when we first started. It was just, hey, this is something we can do. I felt that it was a great opportunity, but I had no idea where that would take us. And I wish I would have, because we would have done things differently.
Like what?
The foundation. You get started in business, and you start to get busy. You start to get busier, and you start moving so fast that it makes it difficult to once you've grown to a certain level, to go back and lay the brickwork. After you've got a machine that's running at 100 miles an hour, it's almost impossible to stop and go backwards. So, if I would have known, I think we would have done some things differently.
So what did you see right away your strengths to be? Because you built the business pretty quick then.
Sure. Yeah. I saw that our strengths were, we always had the ability, my former partner and I always had the ability to be, we were very likable. We treated people right. We did the right thing. And word spread quick, and so for that reason, we worked very hard. I've got to give him certainly credit because he worked just as hard. But really, it came down to treating people right and just doing the right thing.
So you complemented each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was the on the field technical guy, and I was the guy behind the scenes running the operation.
So restoration is kind of a unique field.
It's a very unique field. Yes, it is. There's a lot that goes to it because there's also consequences if it's not done right, and so it's got to be done right to ensure that after you've gone in and restored a home, if it's a fire, you want to make sure that after you've done your work, that there's no lingering odor that is going to present itself, down the road, or if you're doing a water restoration job where you're addressing a flood, you want to make sure that there is no consequences like microbial growth after the fact because it wasn't done properly. So, there's a lot of nuts and bolts to it.
I know that you took me to your shop one time. I walked through, and
Yeah.
you have places where you store the clothes to take out the odor of the.
That's right. So we have a whole content restoration division, and as we secure a fire job, we've got half of our operation that's running on restoring the actual property, the home, and then we have another side of the operation which is addressing the contents. So any of the items that are inside that fire environment. They go to our facility, they get cleaned and they get restored, and then they get stored on site while the A-team is finishing construction. Once the A-team is finished with construction, then the B team goes in and takes all of those cleaned items back. And so, yeah, there's a certain process that's followed to make sure that there's no odor.
So it's not only the facility, it's the content.
That's
too.
right. That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But you started with roofing.
We did. Roofing led us down this path of property damage restoration. The storm work had dried out, so we said, great, what are we going to do now? And so we started diversifying into other things that still had insurance in some way still tied back to insurance. It was just addressing other pieces of the home that were damaged.
So it's interesting because roofers tend to be roofers.
Right.
But you come from insurance.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So you understand the funding side more than the roofing side. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Well, now at this point, we've gained enough knowledge of the roofing industry itself. But initially, I really had no idea what we were doing, other than the fact that we had a little bit of background just from the few months of work. And I think that's how a lot of people start, especially in the roofing and construction side. But we sort of took it to the next level. We were committed. We wanted to learn it. And as a new opportunity would present itself, my former partner never said no. And so I remember being interviewed once for a large commercial job, and they had asked us if we had ever done this type of roofing and if we were familiar with it. And they didn't ask if we had done it. They just asked, are you familiar with this type of roofing? We said, well, let's do it. So we took the job, and it was successful. So that was our first commercial job. And that mentality and that spirit of we can do anything,
Wow.
certainly applied.
So what were some of your early first challenges that you faced in building?
The lack of knowledge of running a business. We didn't understand, didn't have a very good understanding of how to actually run a business. What cash flow needed to be like. It's just a lot of those challenges.
What problems did that cause?
Well, I can tell you about a particular event when it was a Friday afternoon, and it was a Friday before Christmas. Every time, we always did our payroll on a Friday. And so after this payroll got distributed, we looked at the account and it had $43 in it. And that was the weekend before Christmas. And so my partner and I, we just kind of looked at each other and said, well, it is what it is. And so we overcame that. And that was an example of how not understanding how to run an operation had some consequences. And there's many stories, that happened throughout the years. But
so how did you start with funding? I mean, you had to fund your beginning of the business. How'd you fund that?
That's a great question. So I had received an income tax return check in the amount of a little over $4,000. And so when I presented him the idea of, hey, let's just go back and start this thing on our own, he said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so we took my $4,000 tax return and set up a business with it. Went and bought insurance and some business cards, and we hoped for the best. We started collecting deposits on the jobs that were signed up, and so that helped us kind of get some things started.
And as you grew, did you need more capital? Did you have access to capital as you grew?
We never had access to capital. We never actually obtained a business loan until many years later, for various different reasons, acquiring property, things like that. But we never did. We never did. It was all cash flow that we started generating from sales.
So you funded the growth of the business from
That's
the
right.
business.
That's right. Yeah.
So you invested in the business.
Right. All the time. That's what we did. That's what we did.
Besides,
in fact, we didn't take a paycheck until after about 3 years that the business
Really?
was running. Mm-hmm.
how'd you survive?
Just as we needed things, we would dip in a little bit, but it was never a steady check. It was we got super lucky.
Wow,
We
you
sure
just-
did. And it was, we were at the point in our life at that point where we didn't have many needs. And so, my wife was very supportive. Luckily, she had a good job. So we were able to sustain that way.
So when did you realize that this is what I want to do?
I think after the fact that when I was working for that other company, I had learned it, the business side of it. I had learned the basics of running a roofing operation, and I felt like I understood it. I understood it well. And at that point, I said, you know what? If I'm ever going to make the jump, this is it.
So you had enough
Take a chance.
information.
I had enough information. That's right. I had enough information where I felt comfortable making that decision. And it was a risk.
So what you did with insurance, what did that do? Because you spent a lot of time selling insurance.
Yeah.
How did that prepare you?
So it like I mentioned, it gave me the ability to understand how a homeowner's policy works. How does the coverage apply? What does the insurance claim process look like? I had enough of that knowledge that the second part, which came later, which was the roofing side, the insurance claim side, that all just seemed natural.
So how did you jump from roofing to, well, it wasn't a jump, it was an expansion, I guess, from roofing to restoration?
It was an expansion. We were drying up with work. The roofing work had all of the storm work had finished out. People had already had roofs replaced. There was a lot of roofers, and so that all kind of dried out. And one day we got a call, and somebody said, "Hey, aren't you a contractor? My sister's house just had a fire. Would you come out and look at it?" And we always said yes. And so we said absolutely. We went out and looked at it. We had never seen anything like that before, and we said, yeah, we can help you. And so that was the first job we did on the fire restoration side. We were successful with it, and that just opened up the doors for that side of the restoration business.
What was it like then to take on that mantle, the restoration? Was that a big jump?
It was stepping into territory that we didn't really have a lot of knowledge about. At that point, we didn't have a lot of knowledge of the construction side, of the code side. What does code require? And so, but we leaned on some good people, and we made it happen. Made it work.
How long did that take to the place where you said, we're in this business now?
After about the third job like that is when we figured, okay, we I think we've got this figured out.
What is it that's unique about restoration that is different?
Unique, and then I'll go into the biggest challenge, I would say. But unique is you really have to fully understand the insurance side of the whole operation, and then you have to understand the construction side of it. You have to understand how insurance companies are going to look at a situation. Historically, what's covered, what's not. What does the policy say is going to be covered? So there's a lot of moving parts between the two, and then putting those two, the insurance knowledge and the construction side together to have a successful project.
And you've run into situations where people are underinsured.
That's right. We've had that. As a matter of fact, that first insurance fire job that we did was a situation where they were underinsured. It was a tough situation for the homeowner. It was something we see quite often.
I can imagine. And the losses are huge.
They can be. Absolutely, they can be.
So how do you wow, that's fascinating that you get into that kind of a business. How did you and your partner complement each other?
He was the technical guy, and I was the guy. He was always going to be the problem solver out in the field. There was never a situation that we were faced with out on the field that he wasn't going to find a solution to. And I was exactly that inside the office.
So did you take on that role when you bought him out?
I did, and we've since brought on other people to fill that that gap. But he was a guy that was gonna be the problem solver out there, and I was a guy inside the office that was doing the same thing, and together it worked really well.
Well, that was kind of a smart way to go, I guess, right?
Sure, it was, absolutely, because there was things inside the office that he was never going to understand, and there was things out on the field that I wasn't going to understand.
Did you have big failures along the way at the beginning as you were developing these businesses?
No, I wouldn't say we had failures, and I'll tell you why. I think because we were both hands-on. And so we were very connected, we were very close to our customer, and so we were very aware of what was going on all the time. I think challenges start to come when you're not present, because at that point you're counting on other people, and so I think that's where the challenges started, was later on as we matured and grew a little bit.
So as growth came, then the challenges grew bigger?
That's right. And that's where we talk about, had we had the knowledge of setting, the processes and the procedures early on, that would have been something that could have been trained and repeated. And I think we would have saved some heartaches, for sure.
Yeah, but you were focused on growing the business.
That's right, we were. And it got to the point where it was just too much for him and I to handle, and so we started bringing other people on board. But it's growing pains. It's growing pains.
What are growing pains like?
They're painful. They can be expensive, but they're all learning lessons. We've made our share of mistakes. And I think there have been mistakes that have affected us as a business, not necessarily the consumer. But at the end of the day, it's things that have made us who we are.
So you absorb the mistakes and you don't pass those on to the customers.
Never have. That's not how we've operated.
Wow, that's neat. Do people call you Carlos?
All the time. All the time. I've had to deal with that my whole life.
Why Carlo? Any
yes. So my parents didn't want me to be the fourth. And so they said, well, my dad is Carlos. And so they said, well, we'll just not include the S. But I don't think they anticipated the questions that would follow me for the rest of my life, or the jokes about how they couldn't afford the S, or did the pen run out of ink on the birth certificate?
That's cute.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, like my name is Homero, and I went to the city to look to see if they didn't put Homero, they put Homer. So even my birth certificate is Homer.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they. Yeah. Sometimes I know that people were born in at Hotel Dieu, they would add a saint's name to their name. So a lot of them have an extra saint's name.
So your legal name is Homer, but you call yourself Homero.
I was always Homero, but not my. They didn't record it that way.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's Carlo, right?
Yeah, that's it, Carlo.
So did you have a nickname in school?
Yeah, I one of the nicknames I had was Dumbo.
Oh.
So I had big ears when I was a kid, and so they called me Dumbo. But
what kind of a kid were you?
I was a very I don't know that I would say mischievous, but I didn't sit still, and so I was kind of borderline in between whatever those two realms is.
So you were very active.
Very active, probably more than I should have. I was a kid that got in trouble for driving a car at 13 years old.
Really?
Yeah, just things like that,
So, are you a reader? Could you
I wasn't a reader. No, I wasn't very studious. My skill was always just learn enough to get by, and then that was it.
But you figure things out.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you're a business owner. You figure things out.
Yeah, and I'll say that I'm to this day I'm not a very analytical person, and I'll admit that that's probably a fault, but that's a trait. I study something just enough to know what I need to know, and then get going and pass that responsibility to somebody else.
So your background, you sold insurance for years.
I did. I sold insurance. It was primarily commercial insurance. It was business insurance.
For Rogers and Belding?
For Rogers and Belding, right.
Jimmy Rogers and...
That's right. As a matter of fact,
Janet Aguilar was there?
Yes, Janet Aguilar, yeah. Mr. Jimmy Rogers hired me.
Okay.
Yeah. So
good man.
Very good.
So,
very nice.
So did you find, were you comfortable in the corporate environment?
I was, because I had just left a corporate environment. So I went from working at State Farm to working for Rogers and Belding. And State Farm was a much larger organization, very well structured. And so that was just an easy transition to go into the...
But you started a business. You jumped.
I jumped, yep.
Why?
Fast forward several years and I jumped into my own business.
Why?
I saw an opportunity and I said, I've got to take this opportunity. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur of some sort, but I didn't know quite yet what. And once I got introduced into the damage restoration side, I saw that I could do it well, and I felt very comfortable with it. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna do this.
But you jumped into roofing first.
Jumped into roofing first. That's right. Yeah.
So,
started as a roofing contractor, and then moved into other areas of property damage restoration.
Because you know insurance.
Right.
But did you know, how did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I knew that as a kid. I knew that as growing up. I just, not being able to pinpoint what exactly I wanted to do. I just wanted to do too many things, and my mother was a school teacher. My dad is an attorney, and so those opportunities were there to follow into those footsteps, but it wasn't for me.
So, were you a misfit in school?
Not necessarily a misfit. School was never my thing. Following rules was never necessarily my thing, and so I struggled with that a little bit. But as you get into the business world, you realize that sometimes those are the things that help you.
Yeah. There's some characteristics, I think,
Sure.
that because I did some work with high school dropouts, and I was concerned about that because I saw some of the kids that didn't finish school were very bright. They're just different.
Yep.
And a lot of them are entrepreneurs now.
Yeah.
Of course.
You're looking at one.
Yeah. Okay.
You're looking at one. I didn't finish high school.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't finish high school. I didn't want to follow rules. And so I said, I don't need to do this. As I was so close to graduating high school, I left and found myself thinking, what did I just do?
Yeah.
So I went to EPCC, and my only other choice was to take the GED prep exam. I took that and passed that, and fast forward, started college, left college, came back, and ultimately I finished. So there was definitely some maturity that happened along the way there. But
Have you ever been diagnosed with any ADD
no,
or
I haven't.
dyslexia?
I haven't. There's probably something there, but never been diagnosed. No.
But you knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And you knew the other path, because you could have stayed in the corporate world.
Sure.
But you saw an opportunity, you jumped, you started in roofing, contracting.
Right.
And you were doing that. How long did it take you before you saw the restoration opportunity open up for you?
It was probably about a year and a half into the roofing.
Very quickly.
We figured it out pretty quickly.
And is restoration much bigger for you than roofing?
Well, so the past 5 years, we put all our focus into the restoration side of the business. and took the throttle off of the roofing side. And now that's coming full circle again, where we're definitely putting more emphasis into the roofing
Why
side
is
of
that?
things. We've just figured out that number one, I enjoy that, and so I look back at the years that we've been in business, which has been 13 years, and I had to ask myself, at what point throughout these 13 years did I have the most fun, and how can I pass that on to the people that are in my environment, my employees? And so we found that it was a very good business. We could do a very good job at it, and so we've gotten to this mentality that we want to just now work smarter, and we want to have fun. So
you do restoration,
we do damage restoration,
and then
we
you do
also
roofs
the
as well.
roofing. We still do the roofing.
But that's
And
a different group of people.
It is. So we still have the same staff running the company. There's a different assignment on their desk as it comes through. And we've recently become a dealer for RoofMax. RoofMax is a company that was established 5 years ago. There are almost 300 dealers throughout the country, and right now we are the only dealer in El Paso selling RoofMax. And RoofMax is a roof rejuvenation solution. It's a soybean oil that gets applied to a shingle roof, and it's designed to increase the life of that shingle. And so it's just an excellent alternative to roof replacements.
So that works on shingle roofs.
Works on shingle roofs, right?
So you understand roofing.
Yes.
But that's where you started.
Yes.
In restoration, you come at it from an insurance perspective.
That's correct. Being in the construction field, it doesn't matter what trade you're in. You get exposed to other trades. So an electrician will be exposed to the plumbing, and the plumber will be exposed to electricity. And so the roofing contractor is also in that. They're all in that same environment of construction. So you start to learn other things. You start to see how things move. And we just saw that. We were in that environment, and so it made sense to.
But you come at it from a different perspective.
Yes.
Because you see the from the insurance
side of things.
perspective.
That's right. Yeah, so that was my background, and it just helped make that transition easy. It helped us provide value to our customer because they're faced in situations where they can't navigate through these insurance situations. They just don't know what's next, and there's not that person to help navigate that.
So that's the value you bring to your client.
That is. Yes, we help them understand. Although we don't provide advice, we don't provide counsel on how a claim process should go, but with our experience, we're able to set expectations and kind of help guide that process along.
So, Mr. Quintana, what beautiful surprises have you seen in your work?
What beautiful surprises have we seen in our work? So we have seen somebody's world be from complete devastation to tears of joy.
Really?
And that's a unique opportunity that we have that I don't think a lot of people have. When we get into a fire situation, we're there on day one. When the house is, the firefighters are still there, they're still, putting out the fire. We're able to take that family from that day to the day when they're moving back into your home. It's completely restored, just as beautiful as it ever was, if not better. And that's a beautiful experience that not a lot of people have.
That's the whole process.
That is, and there is more reward in that smile than any other type of reward that there could be.
So you like your business?
Oh, absolutely, we love it. I absolutely love what we do.
What do you like about being a business owner?
I like the challenge. I like the ability for me to set a challenge for myself and to overcome that. The personal satisfaction that I get from it is what drives me. And by no means am I done yet. We've still got a lot of work to do, and so there's a lot more satisfaction that's still.
How many hours a week do you work?
Probably more than I should at this point in my career, but there's a reason for that. I get to my office at about 7:30 in the morning, and I'll leave about 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock, and then go home and probably still turn on the computer to do some work. And you know, at 13 years in business, it probably shouldn't be that way anymore. But we're going through something interesting now. We're turning a page and going back and making some changes to where we really can provide a good sense for each one of our marathon runners in our company to be able to run their marathon and pass the baton to the next person.
So what is that next page that you're turning?
So we're really getting to the point where we're structuring this thing to kind of run on autopilot. So I think that's the point, that is the stage in business where we're at right now, is the automation of people and processes.
Is that hard?
Very hard.
Why?
Because you almost have to start over. You have to rethink everything that you do. You have to identify the seats that need to be filled. What is it? You know, what is the lane that this employee has? What is the lane that this one does? Who does what? At what stage do they pass the baton? How far does that runner go before the next baton gets passed? And so it's all of that.
So are you learning to delegate?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for many years, that was tough for me.
Would you call yourself, were you a micromanager?
I wasn't necessarily a micromanager. I was the guy that was just going to do it all, and you know, that's just something that you learn in your business career.
Because you can do it all.
Because you can do it all, and you want it done a certain way. As we mature in business, we learn that there is a way to make that happen.
Why do you have to make a change?
Because if something happens to me, if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, I want to be able to have continuity of business and not, you know, have the whole thing fall apart.
So are you working on your business to where it can, are you trying to work yourself out of the day-to-day?
In a way, yes, because I want to spend more time developing employees. So I don't want to necessarily spend the time being in their way. I'd rather step back, allow them to do their work, and I focus on their growth and opportunities.
So your focus has changed?
Yes, it has. It has.
So you're more employee focused now?
I am, definitely. Yeah, and I'm trying to get to that point where we could get all of those you know, those ducks lined up, so that I can step back and be that. I can be their leader, and I could be their visionary. Sure.
So why did you come to that point? What brought you to that point where you said you had to make a change like that?
I mean, I just realized that it wasn't sustainable the way it was, you know. I can't continue to operate like that. And then sometimes I feel like I'm in the way, you know. And that's perfectly normal for a business owner. I think people find that out probably too late. I think some business owners never get out of the way, right, and they don't grow.
Yeah.
And so and everybody suffers from that. And so I've realized that there are strengths that I have, and there's things that there's somebody out there that's probably better than me, you know. And so I want to make sure that that I'm not in the way.
So did you use any services here that help small businesses grow? The chambers, the SBA?
You know, we've had all of those tools available, those resources available, and I'll tell you that we haven't done a good enough job of utilizing those resources. And so we've done some brief, you know, things here and there with EPCC, with the SBA, but not at the level where we probably should.
How have you grown your ability for capital, to raise capital?
Yeah, so we developed a relationship with a local bank, and through the advice of a very good mentor and somebody you've interviewed here, he suggested we go to a local institution, start a relationship there, and so we've been able to do that, and that's been very helpful.
So you're crossing your T's now in a very different way.
We sure are.
Because when you start, it's all gut and go, right?
That's it.
Now you're
That
beginning to
is-
think about it a little
now
bit?
now it's time to be strategic and intentional.
You also serve on a community board. What is that
Yeah,
board?
I do, Mr. Galicia. Right now, I am the vice chair of the El Paso Center for Diabetes. I've been on that board. This is my third year, and so it's an organization that has definitely grown near and dear to my heart.
Why?
You know, I see the need. I see the need for it in our community. And I also see the lack of services, and I see that the value of the organization, what it's bringing towards the community, the education. Children with diabetes is a big thing, and so being able to have education for both the children and the parents on how do they deal with this thing, and so that's something that the center provides, and it's huge.
So what would you say your biggest strength is in building your business?
I think the biggest strength has been our ability to adapt, and the fact that we sincerely care about our customers, and that's something that is communicated throughout our staff, and I can tell you that without a doubt, we have 100% the best staff when it comes to restoration services in El Paso, and that's because that is huge all across the board.
Well, you have to have some compassion, I would assume,
Absolutely.
for water damage
Yep.
or fire damage, because you go into you restore damaged situations.
Right. Yeah, every day, and the people we serve, their various backgrounds, various levels of education. Some people don't necessarily need a lot of hand-holding, and then to others, you're everything. They come to you and they gain the trust, and so you become everything to them. You become a spiritual leader. You become their contractor. You become their advisor. You become the guy that shows them how to write a check. And so there's a lot of value that we bring, and that's because we care. But yeah.
How important is faith to you?
It's huge. It's huge. I grew up in a faith-based environment. My parents were divorced when I was 2, and so I was raised by my mom. And we always, church was always taught to us at an early age. God was always taught to us at an early age, and so there's a verse that my mom would always teach us. And in Spanish, she would always repeat it, and it was todo lo puedo en Cristo que me fortalece, which was I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me. And so that stuck, and it still does. So
Interesting, because one of the things I like to ask is, what dichos did you grow up with? Well, that's a pretty strong dicho.
It is. And it was true. No matter the highs and lows, the ups and downs, but she always remained confident and always instilled that in her mind.
Well, what kind of obstacles have you faced? Have you run into situations where you feel like, there's a world against you?
Yes, and at this point in our career, I don't know if I should say this or not, but it sometimes feels like it's the insurance companies that are against us. We're just the bad contractor that's looking to get more and be greedy, but in reality, we're there to serve our customer, and we want to make sure that our customer is made whole. That they're given what they're owed, And so sometimes it feels like the insurance companies are against us. But I also understand that insurance companies are necessary in our world. So I answer that almost as a joke.
So you almost have to advocate for your clients with the insurance company.
That's a fine line. We're legally not able to do that. There are other professionals that exist to do that. But through our experience, we can help, set the expectation primarily for what we call scope of work. So as a contractor's perspective, what needs to be done here? And that's really how we can.
So with your experience, you probably got into the right business for your experience.
Definitely. I don't think that there was anything else that we could have done, and I don't regret it one bit. I think I am at the exact place that I need to be. And so interestingly, I stumbled across it, and I think it was just the perfect.
So what's tomorrow for you?
I still enjoy what we do, and so I can't think of what it looks like to not do what I do. I've done some things on a personal level with property investments and things like that, and so but as far as what's tomorrow, we're working hard. We want to be the best restoration service provider in town, and so we're working hard towards that.
When you started, were you one of the few?
Yes, yes, and there still aren't very many. So we're still in a kind of a unique, market share.
So you've got a big future ahead of you?
I hope so. I hope there's a big future for our employees and for the people that surround us. We've had good relationships with vendors, with subcontractors. We've maintained very loyal to them, and so if we win, they win. So yeah, we still got some work to do.
So what message do you have for people starting a business? The
biggest thing that I would say is if you don't risk, you don't win. And so that is message number one. You have to believe in yourself. That's the other thing. I talked about how we never said no. Did we have all of the answers? We didn't, but we were going to find the answers. And not having an answer that wasn't going to stop us from moving forward. So
you're looking for the answer?
Every day.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your story. I appreciate you sharing. I've learned a lot about the uniqueness you bring to that field because you have that background in insurance,
mm-hmm.
and people who have a loss, or sometimes they need that help to understand how to maneuver that.
They do.
Because it's a costly situation.
Right. And sadly, it's not something that you experience many times in your life. Some people will never experience a property loss. And so it's not something that you right out of the gate know exactly what to do. You don't have answers. And so that's a difficult process to navigate.
So as we finish our discussion, Mr. Quintana, what parting word would you share with us?
I think that what you're doing here is excellent. I think that people looking to get into the business world need to hear things like this. There needs to be a story told about how success doesn't just come overnight. You've got to work. You've got to have grit. You've got to put all of your passion and dedication to it. If you're not passionate about something, don't do it, because it could seem like just a burden. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this for 13 years, and it doesn't feel like it's been 13 years. In fact, if another 13 years went by, it would just seem like a.
Well, the thing is, you built success, so you can't fail. You've got to continue to have success.
Yes. Although there's always something in the back of your mind that triggers that concern for failure. You know, that's certainly always a risk, you know, that you take. But I think we're surrounded by good people, and they want to see us win just as much as, you know.
And maybe that's the answer, is you
Sure.
surround yourself with good people,
Sure.
and
Absolutely.
let them help you. Well, great.
Absolutely.
Well, Mr. Quintana, I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
I trust our viewers enjoyed that. I think it was a fascinating story to see how you've built this thing
Sure.
and made it work, and you're still growing. And
Still
going.
growing, still learning every day. You know, we don't have all the answers yet, but and the other thing is you innovate or you die. So we've seen that in changes of technology and the technology that we use now. But you got to do that kind of thing.
Got to keep going.
That's it.
Fantastic.
That's it. Yes, sir.
We appreciate you sharing your story, and
My
we trust
pleasure.
our
Thank
viewers
you.
enjoyed the story of Mr. Quintana and the Lariat Builders Group. Mr. Quintana, thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's my pleasure.
We trust the viewers enjoyed that. Have a good day, and keep tuned to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. Thank you for watching.